Welcome to AP Art Craft with Kylie Gancos. Today, the work we will be focusing on is the Buddha of Bamiyan. The heading is Buddha of Bamiyan, Afghanistan, Grand Heron, c. 400 to 800 CE, destroyed in 2001, cut rock with plaster and polychrome paint. The text behind the Buddhas is the patron is unknown, as well as the people who created the structures, as there was little to no written evidence of people there from the time. The site was an ideal location for merchants and missionaries to stop as they traveled along the Silk Road. Many of the missionaries and merchants in this area were worshippers of the Buddhist faith, making them want to go and see these emphasis on achieving enlightenment, a state of inner peace and wisdom, not recognizing Buddhism as an organized religion, but rather a way of life or a spiritual tradition. Buddha's most important teachings, known as the Four Noble Truths, are essential to understanding the religion. Buddhist deities in the culture were written in the Great Tang records of the Western regions, where it was described the Buddha in images and texts, giving descriptions of the Buddha and communities that lived in the surrounding region. Merchants come to see the deities and pray for blessedness, either receiving a good or bad omen, describing the adorned Buddhas in a positive light. The nation of the Buddhas ran along the Silk Route in Bamiyan. Buddhism spread because it didn't need to be worshipped in a specific location. Explosions, Mullah Omar ordered Taliban forces to demolish the Bamiyan Buddhas in 2001 by means of explosion. Taliban's extreme iconoclast movement and lack of Western interest in funding had gone to protecting the images while the area was in need, and had also caused the momentum of the Buddhas to be demolished. Destructed by iconoclasts, or people who don't think it's morally correct to use icons or figures, like the Buddha, for religious purposes. An Islamic act is supported the idea that Bamiyan had become predominantly Muslim by the 10th century, and the Islamic faith did not agree with the idea of iconophilia. Expressed and spread the Buddhist culture among travelers. Buddhists could practice their religion by circumambulating the Buddhas. Circumambulation is the common form of meditation and worship for the Buddhist culture. It served as a place for Buddhists to celebrate their religion. It used to be painted. The style of the hair was Greek since it was wavy. It was golden color. Multiple pieces were built separately, then molded together. It's in a high-relief sculpture carved into a cliff face. The head and feet were still connected to the cliffside. It had the combined Hellenistic style and the Greek style into the Buddhas. Elements. Light was casted onto the form inside the cliffside by the sun, exaggerating the features cut into the Buddha's figure. Space. The Buddha fills the space of the facade of the cliff. It adds positives and negatives into the work from the light contrasts. Three-dimensional. It's a high relief, which means the form is alleviated from the mountain face. The metal form of the statue was created from a mold of copper and brass, which was then welded together to create the shape of the Buddha. Wood clad in a thin layer of brass for finer details was added to the hands, the feet, and the face. Stucco was applied over with pigments to make the statues colorful. The proportions were very large. The West Buddha was 175 feet tall. The East Buddha was 120 feet tall. It was idealistic and formal, as was idealized to make like a god, and Hellenistic and Greek attributions. Who are they? They're Greek drapery to show their Buddha godlike status. Two monumental figures carved into the cliff face of the valley. The Western Buddha was 175 feet tall, while the Eastern Buddha was 120 feet tall, described in writings by a Chinese monk covered in metal and other semi-precious stones and other materials. Pigments were applied to stucco to color, and they were wooden masks to cover the facial features. Visiting the statues, as it's now declared a heritage site in danger, as it's a loss of heritage to the Bamiyan culture and the understanding of human history. So far, a projector has made a replica of the Buddhas as a temporary solution. Switching focuses onto our second piece, Shibboleth, by Doris Salcedo. The date 2007 to 2008. The type, installation, and the museum is Tate Modern. Salcedo. Born in 1958 in Bogota, Colombia, her art style is contemporary and conceptual art. She focuses on visual art and did sculpture and installation pieces made of furniture inspired by political issues and violence in Colombia. Review. Doris Salcedo was born in 1958 in Bogota, Colombia. She's known for her evocative political sculptures and installations. She has a BFA, Bachelor degree of Fine Arts, and a MA, Master of Arts. She was director of a School of Plastic Arts and the professor of sculpture and art theory. Next, the patron was Tate Modern Art Museum, commissioning large installation works for their main hall. The site was Tate Modern Art Museum. The intro to meaning. Shibboleth distinguishes certain classes of people. It's a custom or principle or belief distinguishing a particular class of or group of people. The background is a connection to the word Lollapalooza used during World War II by U.S. Army because the pronunciation could identify native English-speaking Americans. The difference is the shibboleth has a darker connotation, illustrating how friends and enemies are separated. Function. It's a sculpture and installation piece that brings upon many messages of the gaps in relationships between families and friends, the barrier we place between ourselves and others, immigration experience in Europe, racism and prejudice, exclusion, and how the past leaves scarring. The goal of this piece is to change people's perspective, from how people have to contort their bodies and look down to see the medium and the real understanding of the work, changing their perspective of how they have to look, and also changing their perspective on the work. Inspiration. Salcedo's inspiration for her works is memorializing victims of recent brutal political violence in Colombia. She uses this using sculptural and forensic reconfiguring of inanimate secular objects, such as furniture and other organic materials, to make these works. The scale of the piece is large, 548 feet wide, to represent the monumentality of scars made easier for viewers to locate. Composition. It's asymmetrical and dynamic, as cracks on the floor aren't symmetrical and the asymmetrical inside of the canyon from the surface. Created by opening the floor and inserting casts of Colombian rock bases and wire mesh to create the rocky texture and look. It's a conceptual art piece as it's left up to interpretation. It's three-dimensional installation art, large in scale and proportion. She influenced transgressive art as it's the act of deliberately breaking one's media as an act of rebellion, such as making a crack in the floor. Experiments with surface like other artists, forming a tradition of experimenting. Influence from other art divided into two to form separation, then adding the context to the work. A large crack in the floor that starts off small but increases as it continues across the room. The fissure length is 548 in length. The largest width of the crack is 2 feet. It is made of mesh fence media of cement and crack. It's a canyon face mold. Elements. It's three-dimensional as it comes out of the ground with jagged edges making it not flat. The color is gray tones inside and outside the fissure. Lines. Lines of the cracks that run against the floor sporadically. Texture. Rocky, jagged surface on the inside and flat and smooth at the top or the outside. Location. The art is difficult to identify. The medium is unknown as it can be a painting, sculpture, architectural piece, installation, or intervention work. Her artistic ability and strength is the balance of formality and the background statement of her work, neither overshadowing the other. Being able to discuss the artistic process and meaning, allowing viewers to create an infinite scarring. As it's a reference to hope, after 7 months of the crack debuting in Tate Modern, they filled the crack with cement, leaving a scarred mark on the floor. It's a symbol for the possibility of healing through a form of closure. Also shows how you can't erase the past, and a scar will always be there from past damage. No style. Style traits are poetic and archaeological, in the fact of memorialization from past, enhanced by grotesque features and reminiscent of historical crime scenes. Influenced by Joseph Beuys and Colombian artist Beatriz Gonzalez, particularly in the fashion of using unexpected materials to receive a large reaction. Work by Salcedo is November 6Y7 by Doris Salcedo in 2002 at the Supreme Court of Bogota. Behind the work is on April 19th, there was a movement where people stormed Colombia's Palace of Justice and held all 25 of the country's Supreme Court justices and hundreds of civilians hostage, with the motive of defending a powerful drug lord, Pablo Escobar. In the following 2 days, Colombian army retook the building and freed the hostages. When nearly all 30 of 40 rebels had died, many hostages were either killed or disappeared. 11 of the 25 court justices had been killed in that time. The work by Doris Salcedo is untitled, made in 2003, made of 1,550 wooden chairs, at the 8th International Istanbul Biennial in Istanbul. Titled honors victims of senseless violence as well as demonstrates how violence disrupts secular life. That concludes my presentation on Doris Salcedo and the Buddhas of Bamiyan.